Okay, I don't know why, but for some reason my camera crashed, so I don't know if it was the software or what, but I was talking about Mod Podge and I was saying that I have a love-hate relationship with it because it dries tacky, and on the back it says that you can buy something called a clear acrylic sealer that you can put over it when it's cured, and that stops it being tacky. But it really annoys me that you have to do that because I kind of want something all in one, but that's an option. Yeah, but I'm going to be sticking with my multi-matte medium, I think, from now on, so I might be using that as a sealer instead. I haven't tried it on my art journal yet to see if it dries tacky, so I shall do that soon. And there was something else I had on my mind. Oh yeah, the other multi-matte medium you can buy is in this little tiny bottle, and you can buy a fine tip applicator for it, which I do have, but I can't see it right now. Oh, here it is. It's this one. At the moment I have another bottle with multi-matte medium in that I'm trying to use up, and then I'll swap it over to the one that's marked with multi-matte medium. And again, like the glossy accents, this fine tip fits just over the existing thing. You don't have to take it out, I think. Let me just double check that. Yeah, that's true. Okay. So they're the ones I'm going to be keeping. The only other wet glues that I have personally used is the Elmer School Glue. I like this because it dries more matte than the multi-matte medium, but it doesn't hold as well. So I use this sometimes if I'm doing a project with card or something that's a little bit thicker and is not going to wrinkle. I used this with thinner card and it wrinkled my project, so I probably will keep it just for like trial projects that I don't care as much about, rather than cards. Like, you know, sometimes you do a project with a box just to see if it'll work and it'll go together, so I'll probably keep it for that purpose. But I do like it. It's got quite a big tip on it, so I did decant it into one of these smaller bottles with a fine nib. These are the Jane Davenport ones. They're meant for ink, I think, or paint, so you can scribble and do fine details. The only thing I don't like about these bottles, whether it's for ink, paint or whatever, is they don't make a seal when you put the lid on. So I ended up putting a pin inside, but I've got a lot of pins stuck in the bottle themselves, which basically means it's useless after that, unless you can try and somehow pull it out. A lot of the pearls on the top have come off, which means they've got stuck and I've had to use pliers. Other times they have rusted in there and they've turned the tip of the glue like a rusty colour, so I don't really recommend these, but I do like the actual bottles. If you have problems with your hands, you might find it quite hard to squeeze the glue out of some bottles, and I found, like for example with these ones, the plastic quality is much better, but it also means that it's very hard to squeeze the glue out. And if you have a glue like multi-matte medium, where it's a gel anyway, it's harder to get out, and it's neon impossible for me to get my glue out of these. So I love the tips, but I hate the bottles. But these particular tips are the long ones. I prefer the shorter ones that I got from Craftelia, but I don't like buying from that company, so I might research if you can buy them somewhere else. But the tips are fine if you don't mind the longer nib. Sometimes it's handy to have a long one, like if you're trying to get underneath something, like into the middle of a flower or something. But yeah, I don't like the bottles themselves, so I'm going to be trying to take these off and put them on like a cheaper bottle, maybe one of the Jane Davenport bottles. I bought these in Michael's. I don't know if you can get them over here or not, but you should be able to buy any kind of cheap glue bottles, because the cheaper ones tend to be the softer, squeezy ones. These were some cheap ones that I got in Joann's when I was out in the States. These are fine, squeezy wise, they're great. So yeah, when you have a look in the shop, just have a good squeeze and see if they're easy or not. Yeah, so I've talked about these ones, and these are quite pricey as well. These are $8.99 for two, and so I was quite disappointed when they didn't work. And I bought those at Crafts You Love, which is in Crawley, I think. It's towards Gatwick Airport, because I went there when I went to pick up my in-laws. The other kind of glue that I have is Crackle Accents. I don't really use it as a glue. I'm not sure if you're supposed to use it as a glue, to be honest. It's another glaze type thing. It's like Glossy Accents, but it cracks to give you an aged effect. And it's quite fun to have. Definitely not a must-have in your stash unless you particularly want to put crackle on everything. There are other crackle mediums like the Distress Paint Crackle Clear Rock Candy. To be honest, I would go with this one over this one, just because it's a little easier to apply. It comes with a brush, although mine has proper... Look, you can see how old that is. It's pretty much dried. I'm going to chuck that away. Maybe I wouldn't recommend that then, because I've had them about the same time. I don't know. It's easier to apply because it's in this pot, but you could also squeeze some out and apply it with a brush. It's up to you. They're the two options that I've tried. One is going in the bin. Okay, I think I'm coming to the end of wet glues. The last one I have is this bookbinding glue by Pinflair. I used this in a video about making my own journals. I loved this glue. I thought it was great. It was quite easy to apply. It wasn't too wet. It didn't run everywhere. I use it for binding my books together, but you can also use it to stick your quilling pieces to your card and all sorts of different things. I do like this. I like this a lot. It might also be handy if you like to keep your paper pads together and you want to glue the spines or make your own paper pads to send to people, make your own little collection. You can cut them 6x6 and then add this to bind it together. So that was fun. That's fairly new to my stash. I've also tried this solvent twisting glue by Yoo-Hoo. It's not bad actually. It's probably one of the better sort of mainstream, what I would call kids craft type stuff. I bought this to do some crafts with my nieces, but I like the fact that it has a fine applicator, or you can make it to a wedge, but again it's that really wet glue and it comes out whether you want it to or not, which is a bit annoying. But yeah, it's not bad. I'll use it up, but I probably won't buy it again. I'm getting very sticky fingers. Okay, so I talked about the Jane Davenport bottles and I talked about the fine line ones. The other bottles that I've tried are these. They have the little rubbery bits on. I think I got these in Hobbycraft. I think they are the ones, the quilling tool ones. I like the bottles. They're not too stiff. They're a bit stiffer than these ones, the cheapy ones I got in Joann's, but they're not too bad. I like that they don't have a pin in the sense that they can get stuck in there, but you still need to have a pin because they get clogged quite easily. These are okay if you can't find the tips that I got from Crafty somewhere else, then, or you don't want to pay shipping or whatever. These are an okay option. They work, but they're not my favourite. So, but if you want, again, if you want to borrow these, I will send you them. I'm not going to decant the glue. You can have some multi-matte medium and a bit of glossy accents if you so desire. But yeah, again, they're okay. I'm probably not going to keep these once I've used the glue up. This is my Elmer's glue, and this is my that clear messy glue pen that I started off with glue. It decanted in there because the tip dissolved and I couldn't use the bottle anymore. So I'll probably use these up, and then I might see if they work for mixed media. If not, I'm going to chuck them away. So that is all my wet glue and the bottles I've tried. Oh no, I lied. I've got a couple bits more. I keep a little E6000 in here, and that is for when I do jewellery making, because to be honest, it's the only thing that holds stuff together. It's the best one I found. It's not perfect, but it does most things. The other thing I have is a little bit of super glue. This is just from the pound shop. I think you get a couple. My mum-in-law gave me this. I use that occasionally, usually when I need something to dry a bit quicker than this would. The only other thing I would say about this is it comes out quite quickly. It's a bit like when you open a new tube of toothpaste or medicine and it comes out whether you like it or not. So I tend to just put a little bit on a cocktail stick, and then I use the point for the fine application because it's a bit like silicone glue in the consistency. So that is a good way of controlling it. And the other thing that I keep in my drawer is lollipop sticks. I use that for multi-matte medium. I'm sure you've seen me use it in my videos. These are really handy to have. Yeah, I just like them. I'm not great at using my fingers because I have eczema, and also these are like way more easier to get into detailed spots, so they're quite handy. Even though they're not glue, I do keep them in my glue drawer. So I have a few, as you can tell. I will sort it out later. So I think we're going to move on now to sticky tapes and foam and that kind of stuff. What I would call dry adhesives. It looks a bit of a mess on here, doesn't it? I have this punch tape, which is basically just sheets of double-sided tape. It says it's acid free, but it's gone a bit yellow over time, so I don't know how true that is, or whether it's just the paper, the backing paper. I should probably use these up pretty quick, but they're okay. They're quite thin, so they're die cut nicely. The other double-sided tape that I have is this Big Mama roll of Elizabeth Craft Designs. I think this costs about $7.99 on Amazon. Again, I like it because it's thin, the backing is thin, so you can basically make your die cuts into stickers. It's a bit expensive though, so I tend to buy this cheaper one from Screwfix. I think it was Screwfix or Toolstation, I can't entirely remember, but it's a bit thicker on the backing, which sometimes is a good thing and works to my advantage. Sometimes it's really annoying, but this is about £2.50 and I've used quite a lot of it already, so I think you get about double that because I have used it a lot. It's great for making sticky back cardstock, and it's cheap and it holds really well. So to be honest, I would probably just go for this if you don't have anything. See if you like it, and if you find it annoying that the backing's too thick, then maybe upgrade to this one. But I'm really happy with this, and I was pretty chuffed when I found it. I just wish I'd found it before I had spent money on this one, but never mind, that's why I'm sharing. As a general rule, I don't buy the A4 sheets of Stick It adhesive because I find them too expensive. They're about £5 for 4 A4 sheets, and the amount that I go through cardstock is ridiculous. They would be gone in like 10 seconds and I'd be constantly replacing them. And also I like to cut small things, so to cover a whole sheet and then be stuck with having to use that colour over and over and over again to justify the use of the A4 sheet is just silly to me. I'd much rather cut off a little bit of strip of tape and then do my word die and then chuck the rest away and then worry about penny pinching. The other option I have for making your die cut stickers is this Xyron Creator sticker. I've never used this. I don't know why. It's really easy. You literally feed your die cut in here and then you pull this with the adhesive on it, and then it's got a little tear off thing, you tear it off and then you burnish it down. But honestly, I've never used it, so I don't know. It's got the permanent adhesive in it. I don't know if I'm going to keep this or not, to be honest. If anyone particularly wants to try it, let me know. Yeah, and I'll think about it, I guess. But yeah, that is an option. I don't know why I haven't used it. I don't know, I just haven't, and I've had it a long time, so. The other double-sided tapes I have are some thin ones. Let's go with just the regular tape for now, and then I'll go through the red line in a minute. Okay, so this I think was a cheapy pack from the Poundland. It's honestly fine, it's sticky, it hasn't yellowed, which is nice. These I've had for a really long time. They've started to separate, which is unfortunate. They've also gone a bit yellow. I'm going to replace this at some point because it's driving me crazy. But until then I'm going to keep it because I actually find it really useful for sticking down ribbon to cards. But don't hoard this kind of stuff. I don't recommend buying it in bulk because it does go off over time and lose its stick. So there's really no point, you'll end up chucking it away like I'm going to. I also really like this thickness. This is another great thickness for adhering down ribbons. Again though, it's gone yellow and over time it's really difficult now to pick off the backing and separate it. So I want to replace that. I also tried this finger lift tape, which is from Every Craft's a Pound. I don't know if it's picking it up on the camera, but the tape doesn't go all the way to the edge. This makes it a lot easier to lift compared to the other tape, but I find it really annoying because I usually use the edge of the backing paper to work out where the actual tape is so I can line it up to the edge of my project. So there's some pros and cons. It's okay though, I will use it up, but I probably won't buy any more. And I suppose for £1 for the amount you get, it's probably good value, but it's not my favourite, so I probably won't buy that again. The other double-sided tape that I own is this red line tape. It's basically the same as regular tape, double-sided tape, except for it's super sticky, and it does have a little red sheen, so I don't like using it for ribbons that are slightly transparent. But if I'm doing something like a box that I want a really strong hold that someone's going to use over and over again, this is great. And it doesn't seem to have the yellowing issue that the other tape has, so I've had this in my stash for quite a long time and it still looks brand new. I haven't used the thinner one the most, but yeah, I do think every crafter should have something like this, and this is like the Sticks 2 brand. It's not expensive brand at all. I think Woodware do some, but I would just recommend buying the cheapest you can find in these kind of 3mm and 6mm lengths, widths, sorry. Okay, the other things I have in my stash are low tack masking tape. I don't really use this one very much. Even though it says it's low tack, it's still quite sticky, and it's kind of a bit more like micropore tape. I'm not keen on it. I'd much rather use the Artist Loft brand. Let me just find it, it's in my watercolour drawer. She said confidently, and now can't find it. Well, it was in there. Oh no, I put it up on my pin board. This is the Artist Loft brand. I think it was £1 in Hobbycraft. I much prefer this. It's thicker, so when you stick it on the side of your paper, it's not, it gives you a bit more room to peel up, whereas the really thin stuff is quite frustrating because you can tear your painting or your watercolour piece that you're doing, and I pretty much only use this for watercolouring to tape it down so the paper doesn't warp. I would recommend having some kind of low tack masking tape if you're interested in watercolouring. If you don't watercolour, you really don't need it. Okay. So I've done double-sided tapes. The other kind of double-sided adhesive you can get are these snail runners. You can get tape or you can get dots. This one is a tape. You can get some that are continuous lines and some that are tabs, which means they put out little rectangles that are broken. I don't like the rectangles because I just find they go on funny. I don't know how to explain that. They don't always start where you think you're going to start, so you have a gap at the beginning and then you end up with too much at the end and you end up pulling one up, or they just get gummed up on top of each other. I'm generally not a fan. I've tried them. I used up the ones I had, but I'm probably not going to buy them again. This one is for vellum. You apparently can't see through. I've never used it for vellum. I just used it as usual adhesive. And once I've used this up, I won't be buying it again because I don't like double-sided tape runners in general. I do like the dot runners, and I think I talked about this in my haul video where I bought this one. I like the dot runners because you can erase them with an adhesive eraser or your finger really easily, so if you get somewhere you don't mean to, that's a good way of cleaning up your project. The thing that I don't like about them is they're not always the best stick in terms of permanence, even though this isn't a permanent dot roller. I've also tried the Elmer brand. I've tried all of the Dovecraft ones. To be honest, they're all about the same. This one ran out really quickly, so I won't repurchase that. I bought that in Walmart when I was in the States. I like the Craft 2 ones the best out of all of them because they're £1.50 for a refill, which is the cheapest price I managed to find if you want to use the small one. The downside is they don't stick quite as well as I'd like, but for most of your card making needs these will probably be fine. But my new one is this one, and so far I've really liked it. The dots are much more sticky and it's not too heavy to hold. I'll probably do a better review of this when I have played with it a little bit more, just so I can give you a bit more in-depth rather than I like it, it's sticky. 50 awesome points to everybody who got this far in the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you can find out when I release new videos. And there are a couple of videos here for your delectation if you so desire.